We're live. If we can't hear me, then we're just gonna call it for today. Um, I will wait to see if someone comments that they can hear me. If not, it has to be a YouTube issue and not my computer because now I'm on the phone. Anyway, wow, what a morning! It's kind of right in line with everything else that's been happening this week, I tell ya. Yay! Okay, I see Gigi. Gigi can hear me, and we're gonna do this. So, what is this? Fourth time, third time, fourth time's a charm, and we're on my iPhone. So, thank you, Apple, for not failing me. What a week. I want to start off by saying, I have been a part of a case for quite a while, and the family court system has completely failed a child who is being sexually abused this week, and it took a huge toll on me. And there's some weeks where I wonder, can I keep doing this? And then I hear some really positive outcomes and success stories from my clients. So, I've kind of going to take the weekend to decompress and be angry. And then I'm going to get back at it again, just like all of you do. That's kind of the way I made it through my battle, was that type of mentality. Is I'm allowed to be angry. I'm allowed to be mad. This system is so broken. And then you get back up and you dust yourself off and you try again. And that's what we keep doing. I do want to take a moment to say, so let's see, Gigi, admitted sex addict. It's just broken. I had posted something last night on my Facebook page about this child sexual abuse issues within the family court system. And, common sense tells us 1 in 4 girls, or statistics tells us 1 in 4 girls is sexually abused by the time she turns 18. 1 in 6 boys are sexually abused. Why don't the outcomes of family court cases when sexual abuse is alleged, why don't they reflect those same statistics? I rarely see success stories when someone lodges a complaint of child sexual abuse, and it's just so wrong, and it's a topic that weighs really heavily on me. If someone goes in and lodges a complaint of sexual abuse, the alienation card is played, and sometimes a lot of times moms lose custody. I know here in California, there's a law that, deep living, I wish I'd known that in the beginning. Absolutely. There's a law that if somebody files a complaint of sexual abuse and it's unfounded by the court, the sexual abuser can petition the court for custody, and many times will receive it. And it's just, even when you have a child who is pretty much screaming from the rooftops that she is being sexually abused and naming her perpetrator, it can still be turned around and mom can lose custody. And so I have my hope dealer coffee cup, but I'm kind of, the events from this week have taken a toll on me. And the Black Lives Matter movement, I want all of my brothers and sisters who happen to have a different skin color than me to know that I'm listening. I am doing my best to use my platform to share your message, which is all of our message. I want to say Black Lives Matter. They matter to me, and I will continue listening, and I will continue speaking up. I've gone through life you know, I've been raised in California. I went back to Tennessee to visit a family member about 15 years ago, and it was such a wake-up call for me because prior to that, I truly did not know that racism existed, and that sounds really naive. And I'll tell you, I was in Tennessee for 4 days and I cried myself to sleep every single night because it was such a gut punch for me as a human to know that there are still people who are prejudiced. I truly that I knew that it existed, but I didn't know that it was still present day happening. And, you know, I will be honest, I'm one of those people this week who I'm afraid to say the wrong thing. So maybe I've stayed too quiet. I don't feel like I'm being quiet, but I will say that I'm not going to take that approach anymore. Um, I am not only anti-racist, I'm going to, you know, words and actions need to be in alignment. And I use the analogy on my Facebook page because it was really upsetting me when I would post stuff in favor and support of what is happening in our world and our Black brothers and sisters. And my heart is breaking. And I would have people comment and say, all lives matter. And I was finding myself so angry. And I ended up posting something. The only analogy I could come up with was pretend you're a mom, a protective mom in family court, and you keep going in there and they don't want to hear about what you've been through. They don't want to hear about the abuse you've suffered. They don't want to hear your story. All they keep telling you is that all parents matter. And every time you try to tell them, you know, my child is suffering, my child is being abused, and they put their hand up and say, all parents matter. That's bullshit, you know, and we are experiencing that in the family court system. And if there's anybody in this world who should understand systemic oppression, it's us, it's protective parents. And so I encourage you, you know, I don't think being silent is acceptable anymore. I think we all have to voice our support and become loud. You know, so I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that it's on my heart heavily, and I am hopeful that our whole country, our whole world is standing up and saying it's not okay, because it's not. And so I'm so proud. You know, one of the things I said is I'm probably one of the few Facebook page owners who doesn't care about likes on my page. You know, some business owners would be over the moon to have 55,000 people like their business page or their, you know, their cause. And I'll tell you, I care more about quality than quantity. And so I'm losing followers, and I'm okay with that because I feel like the quality of people who are left behind it's the direction it needs to go. So thank you all for hearing me, and I encourage you to please use your voice and to please stand up and say this is not okay. So thank you. I do want to get to the questions that were submitted, and I really appreciate those of you who were patient with me this morning. Yes, remember this when you vote. We are voting these people in. And I don't care if we're talking about our president or anybody else in a position of government, our judges. You know, I don't find that anybody has a right to complain if you aren't getting involved in your local system, if you aren't educating yourself on who these judges are, because some of these judges are so corrupt, they are so narcissistic themselves. You know, you cannot stay quiet and you cannot be uninvolved in your local system. And, you know, at every single level of government, there's narcissism, there's corruption, there's the good old boys network, and that creates the majority of the problems that we have in this world. So please become involved in your local system, in the bigger picture, and educate yourself on these judges. Write to your governor. You know, the governors are appointing a lot of these judges. A lot of them are elected, but we all have to be involved. So please do your part, because things need to change. And I'm hopeful that we might be going in a better direction. So, but thank you for making that comment, because it is so absolutely true. Yeah, in both parties as well. Absolutely. I don't normally talk politics, about either. I believe everybody is entitled to their own opinions and their own decisions, but if and the corruption and the BS is rampant everywhere. It's not just one party. So okay, let's start with our questions. Somebody wrote, we have our second pretrial on Monday. This is our third court case, second county court, third judge, second magistrate, and fourth GAL. If that just doesn't scream we have a problem to the courts, I don't know what does. My heart goes out to you. I have no idea what the GAL will say in court. It's only going to be our attorneys, the GAL, and the magistrate. My attorney says not to expect much, but the GAL sometimes comes out of left field with their recommendations. Do you have any advice as to how to manage a GAL and try to get her to see the situation for what it really is? My ex is very manipulative and charming. It's not a quick process, in terms of Monday. It's probably already, done at this point. Her decision's been made, or his decision. And in general, for me, there are a couple things that Angie is not a fan of GALs. I'm not, it depends. It's like with everything else in this system, it depends on who it is. There are some good ones. I personally did not have one. I had one who was completely narcissistic himself, maybe even more than my ex-husband. And so that's can be a problem. And I think, like with everybody in the system, they become so calloused to the issues that they see every single day that, their threshold of what's acceptable is really skewed. It's nowhere in alignment with ours. And so, for me, it was time. It was continuing to show myself to be not part of the conflict. Some people wouldn't agree with the strategy and the approach that I took in family court. I was sticky sweet. I was compliant. I followed every single order, even when I was being met with attacks and being blasted by my ex-husband. I almost practiced doing a princess wave in my mind every time I hit send on that email, because I knew that I wasn't writing to my ex-husband. The court was who mattered. My ex-husband doesn't matter. And that was my mentality throughout my whole case. So I do feel that, my strategic communication, my documentation, and just how I presented my case, to where, I would say to our GAL, I don't feel like it has to be this hard. I am somebody who avoids conflict at all costs. I'm truly at a loss for how to navigate this situation. And so, I have the ability to self-reflect, sometimes to a fault. If you see something that I could be doing differently to decrease the conflict, please let me know. I am, so it was those kinds of statements that I made to any family court professional on my case, to try to show myself what my authentic truth was. This is not my battle. This is a one-person battle, and my kids are the ones suffering. So just, your presentation when it comes to what you put in writing, what your documentation, focusing on the issues, not getting zero emotions, all strategy. It's a strategy mindset. And it took me several years to get to that place. The first few years I was operating in such a place of trauma that, I wasn't making the right decisions. And I see so many comments coming through. It's harder for me. I don't like doing this from my phone because it's harder to kind of keep up with it. But I'm going to go through the questions that have been submitted. I do want to remind everyone, because I forgot, I'm not an attorney. I'm not qualified to give you legal advice. All I can do is share my perspective as a 10-year court advocate, both with my own case and with many other cases. And so I love to kind of offer what I see in the courts, what my experience has been, what I would do if I were in your shoes. But ultimately, your attorney is your voice and your advocate in the courtroom, so always check with them. And then I got sidetracked. So the comments, I'll do my best after I get through these to kind of scroll through. But if you want to submit a question for me to address next Saturday or the Saturday after, you can send it to coffeedatewithtina@gmail.com. And I kind of take them in chronological order. So the second question is, I'm not certain how to present my position during mediation. I want to prepare for his antics and not fall into his trap. What should I expect him to be doing at mediation? It really comes down to who you're dealing with. And I'm actually creating an online course right now. It's scheduled for July on mediating with narcissists, because in most states it's required. And a lot of people have the perspective that mediation is it's a waste of time, it's pointless, it's a waste of money. I have the really unpopular opinion. I don't agree with that at all. And I will challenge, there are always cases where, it's just a formality. You have to do it and be done with it. But what I'll say is, I think it's an opportunity for incredible insight into their cards. And it makes a difference if the mediation is recommending or private. If it's recommending mediation, then that mediator is going to issue her opinion, her the direction she thinks things should go to the court, and they can really embrace that. So I'd want to know first, if I were going for mediation, is it private or is it closed, which means what happens there stays there. What to expect from him at mediation. You know his buttons, you know his triggers. Most of their big button is money, is finances. And so, that button becomes your bargaining chip in a lot of ways. Again, it's strategy mindset. And the online course that I'm creating on this topic, it's one of the questions that we get asked most often is, about mediation with a narcissist. And so, do your research, to start off with. Who is the mediator? Who chose the mediator? Everything you can find out about this person, what your attorney thinks about them, any potential biases that they may have. If I were personally going into a mediation and I had heard that they were very pro-father, if it were a private mediation, I may be there just to put in my time and practice desensitizing myself to sharing my story. So I would make the most of the time and still look for an opportunity to see the other person's cards. But I wouldn't put a lot, it's managing your expectations, and figuring out what are the things we can check off the list here, because as many of the little things as you can agree on, good morning, um, as many of the little things, then your judge can focus on the big things if your case makes it to the court. So do as much as you can to check off some of those littler things. But what should I expect from him? Projection, lies, manipulation, charm, those are usually deflection. Those are usually the things that we see from these people. And a big feed supply, being in the same room with you, being under the same roof with you, and them knowing how uncomfortable conflict typically makes us, and that type of thing, that's a huge feed supply for them. So that's typically what I see. um, my first mediation, which was court ordered, she took us both into the room. My ex, his anger was so, he dropped the mask pretty quickly, and she noticed right away and just basically said, "Stop, sir." He came in with all these binders and folders, and I'm thinking, we've been separated for 6 months. What the heck do you have in all those? I think they were probably empty, and it was just to intimidate me. But, she stopped the whole thing and said, "You know what? I'm going to meet with him first. I'm going to have you go in the waiting room." She ended up meeting with him for 45 minutes. She came out to the waiting room and said to me, "I'm going to flag this for a psych eval. They're not going to know which party I suspect of having an issue, but I'm hoping it just serves as a red flag to the court. I'm going to bring him back out, take you back, and then, we'll talk for a few minutes, and then I'm going to have you leave the building and go home when I bring him back in." And that to me gave me so much hope that somebody had seen through him so quickly. Unfortunately, it took 6 years beyond that for the courts to really get it completely. But that one lady, some mediators they've seen it all. And if they care, they can be very good. I didn't have a good outcome, but there was some validation in that, and it gave me hope. So somebody asked, when you finally had joint legal custody, and decision making taken away from him, what do you feel were the main considerations that the judge took into account? Were there specific issues of health, education, safety? If it was mainly based on custody evaluator findings, what were the main issues? I know everyone's situation is different, but examples really help. And the more we all share and the specifics the more we will all benefit. I agree. And so I'm happy to share my experience, but I encourage everyone to share theirs in the comments as well, because, that is such a pivotal moment in your case. I had been asking for full legal custody since day one. I filed from the women's shelter my response to his declaration, and it took me about 2 years before the court finally gave me legal custody. I will tell you, if I had it to go back and do all over again, I don't know that I would have filed initially for legal custody, only because, you know, what I know now is that it's very hard to get. And sometimes I do think, somebody's just joining us. Quite a few people are just now logging in. So thank you for being here. And in the comments, please let me know where you're from. If this is your first time, I love reading the comments afterwards, and I do read all of them. So thank you for being here. So legal custody, it is, if I could do it all over again, I don't know that I would have asked for it right away. I think it kind of poses a red flag to the court when I went in there with that extreme stance. So, I would have, in hindsight, being in, hi, Tucson, Arizona, I'm going to be in Sedona soon. Very, very safely socially distancing, but yeah, I love Sedona. It's one of my favorite places. So when I finally got legal custody 2 years later, it was because I had shown such a pattern of my ex-husband violating the court orders. The specific incident was that my daughters had a flip phone. I was tracking their flip phone constantly when they were with him because he was lying to me about their whereabouts. And when we got to court, and I was accusing him of not keeping the girls where he said they were going to be, the court at one point basically said, I don't know who to believe. Does anybody have GPS to tell me where these kids have been? And I remember going, Your Honor, I actually do. And here's the thing, my narcissistic minors counsel was fuming because I had not told him, and he looked stupid because he's such a narcissist that he wanted to be all-knowing on our case, and he ended up looking like an idiot. And so I started reading the GPS out loud. The court said, can you give it to Mr. Narcissist GAL? And he, takes a minute, he's pausing and he's pacing back and forth as he's reading it. And then before that though, the judge had asked my ex-husband to describe in detail, what time did you pick them up Friday? What did you do with them? We went to the beach, we got Starbucks, and we got on the road. We drove to San Francisco. I carried them in to the condo and 11 o'clock at night, step by step. I took them to a park Saturday morning. We did this, we did that. We had such a great weekend. So he had painted this whole story, and I'm sitting there in shock going, that is such a lie. The kids were 4 hours away from where you're saying that they were. So that GPS moment was huge. I was in shock when the judge said, does anybody have GPS? Because half the time I thought I was getting in trouble if I were, that I could get in trouble if I was tracking them. And some people do. So be very careful. That's something to consult with your attorney on. But minors counsel starts reading play by play and kind of going, this is where the kids were. He's been just, misleading the court, lying to me, lying to the court, blah, blah, blah. And that point was when the judge took away all overnight visits and gave me full legal custody. So that was what led up to mine. It wasn't a custody evaluation or minors counsel doing anything real to help my case or protect my kids. It was kind of me taking things into my own hands. And from that point on, he never had another overnight visit. That really sank him. And in future court dates, the court would actually go on record and remind the court that he had lost all credibility in the courtroom. And so it was a huge moment to catch them in a lie, especially. It's one thing. There is no accountability for perjury in family court, but Erica, do not call him a narcissist, or don't call him a narcissist. I haven't been following the comments on that, but I don't ever recommend calling anybody a narcissist anywhere in the court system, whether it's mediation or Singapore. Oh my goodness. Thank you for joining us this morning. And now perjury. There is no recourse for perjury in family court, but if you catch the narcissist directly lying to the judge, in those moments, I remember sitting there going, wait a minute, he's been lying in declarations for 2.5 years. He sat in court and lied. And I've been bringing this all to the court's attention and proving it, yet when he actually lies to the judge's face, that's when you care. And it just shows what is potentially the level of narcissism in the judicial system, that it mattered when he lied directly to the judge. But whatever, my kids were safe, so I'm not going to pick that apart. The next question, basically 3 kids, 16, 14, and 9. I'm assuming they have a 50-50 custody schedule, and that's been since 2016. The toll of the abusive parent is really, the kids are feeling it right now, and her attorney suggested that we petition the courts for a guardian ad litem, which, sorry, I probably just scared the heck out of you when it comes to that topic. Um, you know, he's so charming, convincing, that's her concern, is that the kids still won't have a voice. And if I were going to ask for a GAL, minors counsel, guardian ad litem, it's called different things in different areas, but essentially it's a counsel for the kids. Um, I asked for one constantly, and I was finally appointed one, and he just happened to be the only attorney standing in the courtroom that day when the judge was, going to order minors counsel, and the judge looked at him and said, "This is your new case." And if I could go back and do it all over again, I would have done my research. I would have chosen 3 names for minors counsel that I would submit to the court and ask the court to choose one of those, or I would have asked the other side to choose from the list. So essentially, pre-screening them without actually ever talking to them or meeting them, just doing my research behind the scenes. And so, why doesn't a GAL actually listen to the kid's voice? Some of them do, a lot of them don't. I think, like with anything in the system, they become desensitized. Um, it's I'll tell you that if I were having to do that job, it would break me. You know, I think that you have to have major emotional boundaries and psychological boundaries if you work in that capacity. I know that things I see and hear on a daily basis really wear on me over time, but every morning I get up and I make a conscious decision that every case is equally important, no matter where it falls on the scale of abuse or how bad it is. When children are suffering, everybody's case is equal. There are some realities into the courts, when it comes to that topic, but I couldn't do their job, is what I'll say. And so I think some of them, that even though they've started off with a good heart or caring, I think they get very calloused. I think they suffer from compassion fatigue. I think there is so much misinformation from these BS alienation camps and movements that it filters into their education, and it's not positive for protective parents. All the alienation stuff and the webinars that are conducted for continuing credits for attorneys and all of these family court professionals, I see them because I joined some of these same organizations just to keep an eye on things. But the education that a lot of them receive is that moms, particularly most of the time, are the ones who file false allegations, make false claims to get a leg up in custody, and they really don't have an understanding of post-separation abuse and the realities that we're all going through, and that these things we're alleging are really happening. And so, that kind of ties into just the brokenness of the system. Um, those are the questions that have come through. I do want to remind everyone, I'm starting a co-parenting group called Lemonade, Co-Parenting with a Narcissist. It starts on June 20th, and I do still have a few spots left. You can go to the One Mom's Battle Instagram page and click on the co-parenting support group link. And then I have new online courses coming out. One of those has to do with safeguarding your case against alienation claims. And if you claim sexual abuse, if you claim psychological abuse, physical abuse, anything on your kids or about your kids in the court system, I am willing to bet you that they are going to accuse you of alienation, enmeshment, or gatekeeping. And so for those of you who haven't been met with those accusations yet, and you want to safeguard your case to ensure that you're doing all the right things, to protect yourself from those accusations, I have a course that I just launched in July, and there are still spaces available for that also. It's on the One Mom's Battle website under online courses. Is there a sooner documentation workshop than July? No, I do the documentation workshops. Is there a website? I don't, you can email me for it if you don't have Instagram. It's tina@tinaswithin.com. My last name is the word within with an S before it, and I'll get you whatever information you need. I do the courses once a month. I like to do them live. At some point, I'll probably have something for instant downloads that you can view the course instantly, but I really enjoy, because when I do them live and people ask questions at the end, when I have time, I'm able to go through and answer those. So the next one is July, but those are all on my website at One Mom's Battle. And then I'm going to kind of put out a teaser here. Don't email me about it yet because I don't have details and information, but I wanted to share that one of my goals for a really long time was to help people who are restarting their lives. I know when my marriage ended, I was completely financially devastated with less than $200 to my name. I had recently lost my business and my house and my cars, and literally rock bottom. As rock bottom as somebody could be, I was pretty close to the bottom. And so having to reinvent myself and start a career, I got a job in an advertising agency, but I remember what it's like to, want to push reset in every area of your life. And for me, using what I've been through has been so healing to be able to do what I'm doing and do coaching and consulting. So next year, I'm going to launch a coaching consulting practice, or a program where I basically train people. You can enroll in my program. I train people to do what I do. Ideally, big picture, I would love to have one person who's kind of a Tina who does this, who coaches, consultants, supports people in each state of the US. So that, because I'm one person and my calendar is so full, and I would love to be able to say, hey, this person who just wrote me from Mississippi, I have somebody I would love to refer you to in your own state, because they will know the laws, the ropes there, all of those things. And so stay tuned. I don't have information to share yet. I'm in the very beginning stages of putting that together. But, and that brings me to my state chapters. If you haven't already joined your state chapter of One Mom's Battle, please do. There is a process that you will need to go through. I require driver's license. I require your family court case number. I am the only one that sees it, but I have a duty to ensure that everybody who applies to the groups is who they say they are. And so go to the One Mom's Battle website, click blog, and then you will see it's got a globe, like worldwide chapters. It will take you step by step what you need to do to apply to your own state chapter and start, connecting with others who are in your area, because there's power in numbers, and the information you can find in those groups is invaluable, to be able to say, hey, this is my judge. What attorney do you know of that's successful going? Renee is already in Idaho. Yay. Idaho is a state on my list. My husband and I are starting to look, where do we want to live when the girls are grown? And I want to get out of California for a variety of reasons. And Idaho is one that I've looked at. So I may be joining all of you in one of your states, who knows, or maybe I'll live in an RV and travel to see all of you and meet you. Um, Anyway, all right, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if we have any gentlemen today, but have a great Saturday and take care. Oh, Randy says my group is so small and no activity. It's a process. I am one person, and I know there are so many people in queue for each chapter, but I'm really doing my due diligence and making sure I have everybody's identification. I verified who they are, and there are 50 states plus 3 or 4 countries. So it's a process. You know, that in itself has been almost a full-time job for me. So be patient. You know, the groups will grow, and they've done it. We've done chapters before and they grow and the momentum picks up. So stay patient and I'll do my best to keep getting people into the groups. But take care. Happy Saturday, everyone.